For over 4,500 years, they've stood there, silent, mysterious, watching empires rise and fall around them. But here's what's incredible. The pyramids aren't just tombs. They're time. And the story they tell? It's the most fascinating civilization humanity has ever known. This is the story of ancient Egypt, a civilization that lasted 3,000 years. That built monuments so precise, we still can't fully explain how they did it. That gave us writing, medicine, and the concept of the afterlife. But it almost stayed a mystery forever. July 19th, 1799, a French soldier, part of Napoleon Bonaparte's Egyptian expedition, is digging near the town of Rosetta. His shovel hits something hard. He brushes away the sand. A stone, covered in writing. But not just any writing. 3 different scripts carved into the same slab. Ancient hieroglyphics, Demotic Egyptian, and Greek. The Rosetta Stone. This single discovery would crack open a language that had been dead for 2,000 years. It was the key to understanding everything. The kings, the battles, the beliefs, the entire story of a civilization lost to time. And what a story it was. Egypt is the gift of the Nile. That's what Herodotus, the father of history, said 2,500 years ago. And he was right. Without the Nile, there is no Egypt. Just endless desert. But with it, magic. Every single year, like clockwork, the Nile would flood. The waters would rise, spill over the banks, and spread rich, black silt across the land. When the waters receded, they left behind the most fertile soil on earth. The Egyptians didn't have to guess when to plant. They didn't have to pray for rain. The Nile gave them everything: food, water, transportation. It was their highway, their calendar, their lifeline. And because of it, civilization bloomed. By 5000 BCE, small villages were forming along the riverbanks. Farmers planted wheat and barley. They domesticated cattle, sheep, and goats. They brewed beer, lots of beer. They built homes from mud bricks and reeds. But Egypt wasn't one country yet. It was 2. Lower Egypt in the north, where the Nile split into the delta. Upper Egypt in the south, stretching up to Aswan. 2 kingdoms, 2 crowns, 2 different worlds, until one king changed everything. Around 3100 BCE, a warrior king from Upper Egypt named Narmer, also called Menes, did the impossible. He conquered Lower Egypt. He unified the 2 lands under one crown, the white crown of Upper Egypt, the red crown of Lower Egypt, combined into one, the double crown of a unified nation. This wasn't just a political merger. This was the birth of the world's first great nation-state. Narmer established the capital at Memphis, right where Upper and Lower Egypt met. From there, he and his descendants, the First Dynasty, began building the foundations of what would become the most enduring civilization in human history. Fast forward to 2630 BCE, a king named Djoser sat on the throne. And he had a problem. He wanted to be remembered forever. So he turned to his architect, a man named Imhotep, a genius, a visionary. A man so brilliant, he'd later be worshipped as a god. Imhotep looked at the traditional tombs, flat-topped, mud brick structures called mastabas, and thought, what if we go bigger? Much bigger. He stacked 6 mastabas on top of each other, each one smaller than the one below, creating the world's first pyramid, the Step Pyramid of Saqqara. It stood 62 meters tall, made entirely of stone, a stairway to the heavens for the king's soul, and it worked. 4,600 years later, we're still talking about Djoser, but the Step Pyramid was just the beginning. King Sneferu, first ruler of the 4th dynasty, became obsessed with perfection. He built 3 pyramids trying to get it right. The first, the Midim Pyramid, collapsed. The outer casing slid off like a landslide. The second, the Bent Pyramid, started too steep. Halfway up, the builders panicked and changed the angle, giving it a weird, bent appearance. The third time, perfection. The Red Pyramid, smooth sides, stable base, a true pyramid. Sneferu had cracked the code, and his son Khufu was about to take it to a whole new level. 2560 BCE. Pharaoh Khufu stands on the Giza plateau, looking at the horizon. He wants a tomb so magnificent, so impossibly grand, that it will dwarf everything humanity has ever built. 20 years later, he got it, the Great Pyramid of Giza, 146 meters tall. Made from 2.3 million limestone blocks, each weighing about 2.5 tons, aligned almost perfectly to true north. Built with such precision that you can't fit a knife blade between the stones. For 3,800 years, it was the tallest man-made structure on Earth. But here's what blows my mind. We still don't know exactly how they built it. No cranes, no iron tools, no wheels for heavy lifting. Just copper chisels, wooden sledges, ropes, and an army of workers. Skilled laborers, not slaves, who were paid in beer and bread. Recent discoveries show they used internal ramps, counterweights, and possibly water to lubricate the sand. But the full truth? Still a mystery. Khufu's son, Khafre, built the second pyramid at Giza. Slightly smaller, but it looks taller because it sits on higher ground. And next to it, the Great Sphinx, a lion's body with a king's face, carved from a single massive limestone outcrop. 73 meters long, 20 meters tall, guarding the necropolis for eternity. Some say it's Khafre's face, others argue it's Khufu's. We may never know. The third pyramid belongs to Menkaure, Khafre's son. Smaller than the others, but still magnificent. Together, these 3 pyramids and the Sphinx became the most iconic symbols of ancient Egypt, but building them came at a cost. The Old Kingdom, the age of the pyramids, was Egypt's golden age. Wealth, power, monumental architecture. But by the time of the 6th dynasty, around 2200 BCE, cracks were forming. The pharaohs had spent too much. The pyramids, the temples, the tombs, they drained the treasury. Meanwhile, the priests of Amun were getting richer, more powerful. They owned more land than the king. Regional governors, called nomarchs, started acting like independent rulers. Then came the droughts. The Nile stopped flooding. Crops failed. Famine spread. People starved. And the pharaoh? He couldn't fix it. He didn't have the resources or the authority anymore. The central government collapsed. Egypt fractured into dozens of competing territories. The first intermediate period had begun, a dark age of chaos and division that would last over 100 years. But from the ruins, a new power would emerge. Around 2050 BCE, a powerful family from Thebes, a city in Upper Egypt, began reuniting the country. Their leader, Mentuhotep II, spent decades conquering rival kingdoms, forging alliances, and crushing rebellions. By 2000 BCE, he'd done it. Egypt was whole again. The Middle Kingdom had begun. This was Egypt's classical age, a time of art, literature, and refinement. Pharaohs like Amenemhat I and Senusret III built massive irrigation projects, turning the Fayum oasis into a lush agricultural paradise. They constructed fortresses along the Nubian border, massive brick walls, moats, and watchtowers, to control trade and protect Egypt's southern frontier. Trade routes expanded. Gold, Ebony, ivory, and incense flowed into Egypt from Nubia and Punt, a mysterious land somewhere in East Africa that the Egyptians considered a magical place blessed by the gods. Literature flourished. The Egyptians wrote The Tale of Sinué, The Eloquent Peasant, and Instructions of Amenemhat, stories and wisdom texts that are still studied today. But this golden age had a weakness. The pharaohs moved the capital north to Ichtawi, near Memphis, and in doing so, they lost control of the delta. Around 1650 BCE, a group of foreigners arrived in the eastern Nile Delta. The Egyptians called them the Hyksos, rulers of foreign lands. They were probably Canaanites or Asiatics from the Levant. And they didn't come to trade. They came with advanced technology, bronze weapons, composite bows, and, most importantly, war chariots. The Egyptians had never seen anything like it. The Hyksos swept through Lower Egypt, establishing their capital at Avaris. They adopted Egyptian customs, worshipped Egyptian gods, and even took on pharaonic titles. But to the Egyptians, they were invaders, outsiders, occupiers. For over 100 years, Egypt was divided. The Hyksos controlled the north, Thebes controlled the south, and in between, tension. Until one Theban prince decided enough was enough. His name was Amu-Se-I. Around 1550 BCE, he led a massive military campaign against the Hyksos. He besieged Avaris, drove them out of Egypt, chased them all the way to Sharoen in Canaan, where he crushed them for good. Amu-Se-I didn't just reunite Egypt. He started the new kingdom, Egypt's Imperial Age. The age of warrior, pharaohs. The age of empire. The new kingdom pharaohs learned a valuable lesson from the Hyksos invasion. Never let foreigners get that close again. So they did something radical. They stopped being defensive and became aggressive. They built a professional army. They adopted the war chariot. They trained elite archers and infantry units. And they went on the offensive. Thutmose conquered Nubia, extending Egypt's borders deep into Africa. He marched into Syria and erected a victory stele on the banks of the Euphrates River, over 1,000 kilometers from Egypt. His grandson, Thutmose III, became Egypt's Napoleon. Over 20 years, he led at least 17 military campaigns. He conquered Canaan, Syria, Mitanni. He captured the fortress city of Megiddo after a brilliant tactical maneuver that caught his enemies completely off guard. Thutmose III created an empire. From Nubia in the south to Syria in the north, Egypt controlled the largest territory it had ever held. But one of the most powerful rulers of the new kingdom wasn't a warrior king at all. She was a woman. Hatshepsut started as a queen, the wife of Thutmose II. When he died, his son, Thutmose III, was just a child, too young to rule. So Hatshepsut became regent, and then she did something no Egyptian woman had done in over 1,000 years. She declared herself pharaoh. She wore the false beard, the royal regalia. She took on the full titles of a king. For 22 years, she ruled Egypt brilliantly. She didn't wage wars. Instead, she focused on trade, diplomacy, and monumental construction. She launched the most successful expedition to the land of Punt in Egyptian history, bringing back gold, myrrh, ebony, and exotic animals. She built the magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari, a stunning, multi-tiered structure cut into the cliffs, perfectly aligned with the rising sun. She commissioned more monuments than any pharaoh before her. But after her death, someone tried to erase her from history. Her statues were smashed, her name chiseled off monuments, her cartouches replaced. Most historians believe it was Thutmose III, possibly trying to secure his own legacy or erase the scandal of a female pharaoh. But they failed. And her temple still stands, one of the most beautiful buildings in all of Egypt. 1353 BCE. A young pharaoh named Amenhotep IV ascended to the throne, and he was about to do something that would shock Egypt to its core. He looked at the pantheon of Egyptian gods, Ammon, Ra, Osiris, Isis, Horus, hundreds of deities, and he said, "No, there is only one god, Aten, the sun disk." He changed his name to Akhenaten, servant of the Aten. He abandoned Thebes and built a brand new capital in the middle of nowhere, Akhenaten, horizon of the Aten, modern-day Amarna. He closed the temples, banned the worship of other gods, fired the priests. It was revolutionary, radical, and deeply unpopular. The priests hated him. The people hated him. Even his own family may have hated him. Akhenaten focused so obsessively on his religious revolution that he ignored everything else. Trade declined. The military weakened. Egypt's vassal states in Canaan and Syria began breaking away. When he died, Egypt was in chaos. His son, a boy named Tutankhamun, took the throne at age 9, and the priests made him undo everything. He changed his name to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. He restored the old gods. He moved the capital back to Thebes. Egypt breathed a sigh of relief. Tutankhamun ruled for only 10 years. He died at 18, probably from infection or injury. He accomplished almost nothing in his short reign. But 3,300 years later, his tomb, filled with gold, chariots, furniture, and treasures, was discovered intact by Howard Carter in 1922. And now, he's the most famous pharaoh in history. If there's one pharaoh who defines the new kingdom, it's Ramesses II. He ruled for 67 years, built more monuments than any other pharaoh, fathered over 100 children, and fought one of the most famous battles in ancient history, the Battle of Kadesh. 1274 BCE, Ramesses II marched his army north to face the Hittites, Egypt's greatest rival, at the fortress city of Kadesh in Syria. He was young, confident, maybe a little overconfident. He pushed ahead of his main army, eager to strike first. It was a trap. The Hittites ambushed him. 2,500 chariots slammed into his camp. Ramesses II should have died that day, but according to his own account, carved on temple walls across Egypt, he fought like a god. He rallied his troops, charged into the enemy alone, cut down hundreds of Hittites, turned the tide of battle. The truth? Probably less dramatic. The battle was a draw. Neither side won. Ramesses didn't capture Kadesh, but he went home and declared it the greatest victory in Egyptian history. He had his version of events carved on every major temple: Karnak, Luxor, Abu Simbel, the Ramesseum. If you repeat something enough times, it becomes history, and it worked. 16 years later, Ramesses II did something even more impressive. He signed the world's first peace treaty, the Egyptian-Hittite Peace Treaty of 1259 BCE. Both empires agreed to stop fighting, to respect each other's borders, to help defend each other against common enemies. A copy of that treaty hangs in the United Nations headquarters today. Ramesses II died in 1213 BCE at the age of 90. He was buried in the Valley of the Kings. Egypt would never be as powerful again. After Ramesses II, Egypt began to decline. His successors, Ramesses III, IV, V, all the way to Ramesses XI, tried to hold the empire together. But the world was changing. The Bronze Age was collapsing. A mysterious group known as the Sea Peoples invaded the eastern Mediterranean, destroying empires, burning cities, wiping out entire civilizations. The Hittites fell, Mycenae fell, Troy fell. Egypt survived, barely. Ramesses III defeated the Sea Peoples in a series of brutal naval and land battles around 1178 BCE. But the cost was enormous. The treasury was empty. The army was exhausted. The workers at Deir el-Medina, the village that built the royal tombs, went on strike because they hadn't been paid. The first recorded labor strike in history, by 1077 BCE, the pharaohs had lost control. Priests of Ammon controlled Thebes. Local warlords controlled the delta. The new kingdom was over. Egypt entered the third intermediate period, another era of division and decline. For the next 400 years, Egypt was ruled by foreigners: Libyans, Nubians, Assyrians, Persians. In 525 BCE, the Persian king Cambyses II conquered Egypt, making it a province of the Achaemenid Empire. The Persians respected Egyptian culture. They rebuilt temples. They honored the gods, but they were still foreign rulers. Then, in 332 BCE, everything changed. A young Macedonian king named Alexander the Great swept into Egypt. He defeated the Persians, liberated Egypt, and was crowned pharaoh. The Egyptians loved him. He founded the city of Alexandria on the Mediterranean coast, a city that would become one of the greatest centers of learning and culture in the ancient world. But Alexander didn't stay. He marched east to conquer Persia, India, the known world. When he died in 323 BCE, his general Ptolemy took control of Egypt. The Ptolemaic dynasty had begun. For 300 years, Greek-speaking pharaohs ruled Egypt. They built the Library of Alexandria, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. They blended Greek and Egyptian culture, creating something entirely new. The last of the Ptolemies was Cleopatra VII. Brilliant, charismatic, politically savvy. She seduced Julius Caesar. She allied with Mark Antony. She fought to keep Egypt independent from Rome. But in 30 BCE, she lost. Octavian, soon-to-be Emperor Augustus, invaded Egypt. Mark Antony committed suicide. Cleopatra followed, dying from a snakebite, according to legend. Egypt became a Roman province. After 3,000 years, the age of the pharaohs was over. The pyramids still stand. The temples of Karnak, Luxor, Abu Simbel, still standing. The tombs in the Valley of the Kings, still revealing secrets. Ancient Egypt gave us writing, mathematics, medicine, astronomy, architecture. They gave us the 365 days calendar, the concept of the afterlife. They built monuments so enduring, so awe-inspiring, that 4,500 years later, we still can't fully understand how they did it. And their culture? It never truly died. The Coptic Christians of Egypt still speak a language descended from ancient Egyptian. Egyptian festivals, like Sham el-Nessim, the spring festival, are still celebrated today. The Nile is still the heartbeat of the nation. Modern Egyptians are building new cities, digging tunnels through mountains, constructing the Grand Egyptian Museum, the largest archaeological museum in the world. And every year, new discoveries emerge from the sand, undiscovered tombs, lost cities, secrets buried for millennia. Ancient Egypt isn't just history, it's alive. Because as long as the Nile flows, as long as the pyramids stand, as long as we look at those stones and wonder, How? Why? The spirit of ancient Egypt will endure forever.